Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Tuesday Pitt Mailbag Show here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We're your hosts, Chris Carter and Stephen Thompson, your Pitt beat writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And as always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our Tuesday episodes, as well as all of our post-game reaction shows that we do right here for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. As always, the show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder and Associates. Whether you're injured in a car accident or hurt on the job, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped injury victims for over 40 years recover more than $2 billion on their behalf. If you or a loved one have been seriously injured in an accident, call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit www.edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. Steven, we are covering a ranked, undefeated 5-0 Pitt football team, and a lot of people are excited to talk about it. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of the year, I said 6 wins was what I was expecting for this team, which, they could only finish with 6 wins this year, but I would be pretty stunned if at this point, after rattling off 5 in a row to start the year, that they end with only 6 wins. So we at the Post-Gazette are starting to think a little bit higher, dream a little bit bigger about what this team can do. And the Panthers certainly look like a team that's capable of much more than just a return to a bowl game at this point.
Well, just so Stephen, just let you know, Pitt fans, Stephen just cursed Pitt because the last time they started 5-0 was 1991, and they finished 6-5. So if it happens, Stephen, it's all your fault. You're gonna have to wear that badge, but maybe you won't. We'll see. Let's get into some questions here that have been sent in. Also, reminder, you can email your questions to us. You can tweet them at us. Whenever we'll try to get them on the show. We lean with a question that actually was very well timed by Len, who emailed this to us. And I had to shorten your question down, Len, so excuse me. But Len asks, how come Gavin Bartholomew isn't getting the ball more? Now, to Len's point, he's not getting the ball a whole lot. I think he's not even top 5 in receptions on the team right now. He hasn't scored a touchdown. He hasn't had a chance to really be a playmaker for Pitt yet. But this offense is also humming. Eli Holstein has thrown 3 touchdowns in every single game. They're moving the ball at will. But Pat Narduzzi addressed this as well on Monday, Stephen, in his noon press conference, where he was like, "Hey, you know what? He called Gavin Bartholomew the unluckiest tight end in the country. He's like, we've drawn up plays for him to be open, and he's been open. It just hasn't worked out." Stephen, why do you think he isn't getting the ball more? Is it just because there's so much talent in this offense to get and ways to get the ball to different guys?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what it comes down to. There are so many worthy pass catchers on this roster that have just kind of emerged more often than Bartholomew has. But I think the other thing is that, outside of really elite guys that you've seen over the past few years, like, a Brock Bowers or a Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. This year, the comparisons would be, RJ Maryland at SMU, Colston Loveland at Michigan, or Tyler Warren at Penn State. College tight ends are not always super reliable. They aren't guys who, always garner a ton of catches or a ton of yards or touchdowns, even if they are truly elite players. That's just kind of the nature of being a tight end on a football team. So I think that plays a little bit of a role in it, but also, I kind of take Narduzzi at his word when he says, Bartholomew's been open, but we've thrown to other receivers instead. So this shouldn't be a huge concern, I think, for many people. This offense is humming without Gavin Bartholomew. I think his time will come. As this season progresses and as more film gets put out there, people are going to focus on Konate Mumfield and Desmond Reid and Kenny Johnson. They're going to throw a bunch more bodies their way, and that'll open up a lot more opportunities for Bartholomew. It just all comes down to whether or not Eli Holstein can find him.
Yeah, I agree. Because again, it's not like they're not drawing up plays for him. He's certainly getting open. Just it hasn't worked out for him yet, but I think it will get there. But again, as Pat Narduzzi points, it is like we don't design plays to go to specific players. We design plays to open up opportunities and for you to take what's there. And Eli Holstein, for the most part, has done that. So tough. It's a tough situation for Gavin, who I think should get the ball more. But it's hard to argue when they're one of the best offenses in the country right now. So there's that. But a good question, Len, because you brought that up the same day that Pat Narduzzi was talking about it in his press conference. So kudos to you for being on the ball there. Let's get to another question here. This one a more broader question, not just about one sport, but kind of involving football. But Josh asks, the AD search committee doesn't include Pat Narduzzi. Does this mean anything potentially negative for his future or how the university may feel about him? And Stephen, that's a good point because Jeff Capel is on this committee, but there could be some mitigating circumstances. Like, for example, this committee was formed in the middle of Pitt football season, and not sure if Pat Narduzzi has time to sit in on meetings when he was like, the week that the Monday that Heather Lyke was let go, that was the Monday before the backyard brawl. And how much do you want to distract your Pitt head coach from focusing on the backyard brawl in your football season? Do you think that is the only reason, or do you think there are other things like Josh might be alluding to here?
Well, I don't believe that much has changed since Heather Lyke left. With or without in the fold, Narduzzi's situation was pretty much the same. It was always going to be the same. He needed to win and improve his program this year, and he's done that so far. So the outcome, to my mind, or the level of comfort that whatever administration has with Pat Narduzzi didn't really change. I wouldn't expect with or without Heather Lyke in there. So I believe that it has more to do with Narduzzi just being in the middle of the season and him having so much to take care of already. Jeff Capel is going to come up on the start of his season pretty soon as well, but he's also based out of the Peterson Event Center where Pitt Athletics is headquartered. So a little bit easier for him to get to and from meetings like this, I would imagine. While Narduzzi has to be in the South Side dealing with 100-some players and an entire football team in the middle of a really important season for him. So I don't think, this is any indication that Narduzzi is on the hot seat or a seat that's any warmer than it was to start this year. So don't think it says anything that significant about Narduzzi in particular at all. Agreed.
I think it says the Steelers, Pitt. You know me, I'm covering 3 teams at one time and it drives me nuts. I think it says, that Jeff Capel's the available major head coach of your 2 revenue sports. But I also think it's this. I don't think there is this to it. I think even if Pitt basketball was in, I'd want to rope in Jeff's support anyways, particularly because Pat Narduzzi has been very open to us. When we've asked him about NIL, he'll be like, "Oh, I don't deal with that. That's our team. Like he has guys that handle with NIL." Jeff Capel, when he talks about NIL, is like, that's the future. We gotta be involved in that. We can't be afraid to it. It feels like Jeff Capel is much more willing to be hands-on with that. And let's be real, whoever is Pitt's next athletic director has to be aggressive in NIL and how Pitt works with Alliance 412 and deals with the housing settlement, which, by the way, got approved. We're recording this on Monday, so today, and there's a schedule that might be lining up for this to all come into effect in 2026, which means Pitt needs to get on the ball and start thinking progressively and forwardly about how it's going to handle those financial challenges. And to me, I think Jeff Capel, if I'm looking for someone at the university that could, have resources or knowledge on how to handle that, I think Jeff Capel's right at the top of that list.
That's a great point that I hadn't really thought of, quite honestly. Yeah, Jeff Capel has been much more involved and upfront about how necessary NIL is to operate in a major college sports conference this year. So that makes a ton of sense. Narduzzi, I think, kind of likes to keep a firewall between himself and those things, whereas Jeff Capel, I think, is not afraid to embrace it as much. So that makes a ton of sense and probably did contribute to the fact that Jeff Capel's on that committee and Pat Narduzzi isn't.
And this is not an allegation that Pat Narduzzi doesn't see the importance of NIL. Mm-hmm. He just, the way that he operates, he lets other people handle it, and because he wants to coach a football team. Mm-hmm. And I get that, and heck, he's doing a good job right now. They're 5-0. They're ranked. They're doing the thing right now, and Pitt's obviously getting NIL funding to fund the football team right now because he kept Gavin Bartholomew from going out to Penn State or Georgia or whoever else was trying to snipe him. You've kept players. You got Eli Holstein. You're doing the things that you want to do, and you just want to take steps forward. I think Jeff Capel is a guy who might be able to help you get there, or at least help find someone who will help you get there in the AD search. So still a lot going on there. Thank you for your question, Josh. That was a very good one. C. Michael has a dual question here. Sent in to us via Twitter. Do you think there will be times where we see Hammond and Reid, of course, Rodney Hammond and Desmond Reid, Pitt's top 2 running backs, on the field at the same time? And who would you say has been Pitt's best offensive lineman so far? I think it's been Lyndon Cooper by a wide margin. Steven, first question. How often would you want to see Rodney Hammond and Desmond Reid on the field at the same time?
It's possible that you could see them both on the field at the same time. I mean, Reid, your ACC receiver of the week, despite being a running back. He's very much able to split out and play some wide receiver, even though his primary position is running back. He's a fantastic pass catcher. So I think in that sense, you could have Reid, play some wide receiver, split out a little bit while Hammond fills in running back spot. That's certainly possible. I'm not sure I see the value in that. I'm not sure what that would change for this Pitt offense and what kind of new dynamic it would add. Maybe it opens up some more space for Rodney Hammond. That's entirely possible. But even then, I think you'd rather just have a true wide receiver out there so you could use Reid's speed in open space. It's certainly possible. Who knows? I think they're still getting Rodney Hammond reintegrated into this offense. He has been practicing, but he didn't really play all that much against North Carolina. I suspect that had more to do with the amount of reps he was able to get with the first team versus what his true ability is. So it's possible. I wouldn't say it's super likely, and I don't think you're going to see it very often if you do see it at all.
No, I agree. I think right now, Pat Narduzzi even addressed this a bit Monday too. He talked about their usage of 11 personnel. They almost exclusively run 11 personnel. 11 personnel, by the way, means one running back, one tight end, and then it implies 3 wide receivers, because Pitt has a pretty good set of receivers right now. It might be the deepest part of its roster, where you got Kanate Mumfield, but also Kenny Johnson, but also Poppy Williams, but also Sincerely, but also Dejon Reynolds. And that doesn't even get to the young guys like Zion Fowler-El and Lamar Seymour, who are waiting in the wings for their chances to come at some point. So I look at that and I think, there could be something there. And with that, you want to get those guys on the field. So if you're taking one of your playmaker wide receivers off the field for another running back, is that what's best for Kade Bell's offense? I don't think so. I think instead, work these guys in, rotate them, let them keep each other fresh, so that Desmond Reid, can be your superstar throughout the game. But when it's late in the fourth quarter, he's not gassed because he's had 29 touches throughout the contest. So to answer that question, all right, now, who is the best offensive lineman so far? You and I kind of talked about this before the show, but I feel like Lyndon Cooper is a fine pick, but I think the bottom line is that there's not been a whole lot of impressive stuff from Pitt's offensive line today.
No, I would agree with you. I would say either Branson Taylor or Lyndon Cooper, but that's almost by default. Those guys have not been nearly as poor as, a Ryan Baer or Ryan Jacoby or a BJ Williams, who has improved, but he got off to a rough start to the year. A lot of pressure is being given up by this offensive line. They didn't pave the way for a great running game against North Carolina on Saturday. So it's between Branson Taylor and Lyndon Cooper, but it's tough to say who's been better because this whole unit has not been particularly great on the whole through these first 5 weeks.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing, is that Lyndon Cooper kind of by default is that guy, but offensive line needs to do better. I think they haven't run blocked particularly well. I think that they haven't. I think they were a little bit better in their pass blocking this week, but still need to get sharper there. But hey, a lot of new faces in a new system. As far as guys that they're hoping to step up in this offensive line. So we'll see how that plays moving forward. Last question comes from Twitter, Mr. Spock. And that's because what he called himself on Twitter. As what's the ceiling of this team, Pitt football, he means. How do you see things shaking out with the rest of the schedule? Steven, we've kind of addressed this, but it feels like we can keep readdressing this until they lose, right? Because every week it kind of changes a little bit, where you get to see more and more. Okay, well they were 2-0, now they're 3-0, then they're 4-0, now they're 5-0. If they beat Cal, they're 6-0. They're bowl eligible with 6 games to go. And I think that it's reasonable to think that they could do that, and then head into the back end of their schedule with some serious strengths on their shoulders. But how do you see this team playing out? Have you adjusted? I think you predicted them to have 7 wins at the start of the season.
I think just 6. I was not very optimistic about them at all. I didn't really picture them being in this position at all.
So I think I had mine prediction at 7 wins, but I'm gonna adjust mine based off of what we've seen so far at 5-0 with 7 games left. I'm gonna adjust it to say they'll go 9-3 in the regular season.
That seems like one of the more likely scenarios to me. I think the worst case scenario, and this is the absolute worst case scenario, is that they win one more down the stretch. And what you alluded to at the beginning of the episode, me jinxing them, actually comes true. But truly, I think the floor in my mind is 8 wins, with 9 or 10 wins being the most likely outcomes of this. I would put it at 10 wins, quite honestly. I think there's really only 3 games that they won't be favored in moving forward. That's at SMU, that's home against Clemson, and on the road against Louisville. But, I mean, you look at Cal, Syracuse, Virginia, and Boston College. Those should really all be wins for this team. Even if they don't play their best, those are teams that I don't think will challenge them. I take that back. They will get challenged, but I believe those are games that they should be both favored in and should win. Going on the road at SMU and Louisville, those will be tough environments. Those will be more difficult games. Clemson, of course, a top 10 team right now. That's going to be difficult. But, I mean, Pitt usually finds a way to pull a rabbit out of their hat and win a game that they shouldn't, or upset a ranked team. I mean, I don't know how that changes now that they are ranked themselves and that expectations have been kind of adjusted. I would put it at 10 wins. I think they're going to steal one off of Louisville, Clemson, or SMU. I would expect them to lose 2 of those games just because I think I need to see more from them before I say, they can win 11 games. They can be an ACC title contender and maybe a top 4 seed contender in the college football playoff. But 10 wins, I think, would put you right on the edge of the college football playoff. And, quite honestly, there seems to be a lot more respect for the ACC this year and respect for its depth than there has been in years past. I would feel pretty good about a 10-2 Pitt team maybe getting a shot at the Ed Net large bid to the college football playoff.
I think it certainly would be interesting to see if they get that call. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. So I guess actually I think I said 9-3 was like my realistic expectations. I do think that there's a ceiling here for them to finish 10-2, get into the ACC championship game, even win the ACC championship game, and be a team that makes the college football playoffs. But even get the at large bid if they lose to like Miami. If they go 10-2 and then they're 10-3 with a close loss, like a respectable loss to just a really good Miami football team, do you leave that team out for some of these other teams? That's a good question. And will they be ranked at that point? Lots of different things to consider there, but I think it's in the realm of possibility. There shouldn't be completely discounted at all as far as Pitt football's chances.
Well, especially after a chaotic week that we just had, where of the 19 teams that were unbeaten, 7 lost. I think 5 in the top 11, 5 of the top 11 ranked teams lost, and then also number 25 UNLV, who was a Group of 5 playoff contender. So lots of stuff opening up for Pitt. I think you expect some more chaos to come over the course of this year. This is kind of shaping up to look a little bit like that really wild 2007 season that nobody could predict who was going to come out on top in the end, and that might play to Pitt's advantage.
Absolutely. Steven, thank you for joining me here on the Pitt Mailbag Show. Thanks to everyone who sent in questions, including Mr. Spock, C. Michael, Josh, and Len. Appreciate everyone who asked questions, and appreciate all of you who tuned in for another Pitt Mailbag Show here from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Stephen Thompson, your Pitt beat writers here. Read all of our work at post-gazette.com. Find us here every Tuesday for the Pitt Mailbag Show, breaking down all your questions here. And also, after every post game, we will be with you Saturday evening after Pitt takes on Cal. The Calgorithm is coming to Pittsburgh. It's going to be a fun time there. 3:30 at kickoff at Acrisure Stadium. If Pitt wins, they'll be 6-0 and bowl eligible within 6 games. Pretty impressive stuff there. We'll see if they get there. Keep it here to stay covered all week long here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We'll see you here from your Pitt beat writers, Chris Carter and Stephen Thompson. Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.